Good morning. My name is JC Audits channel. I'm a military advisor to the family. I wish to make a statement regarding both MI5 and MI6. As military advisor, I've been intimately acquainted with certain aspects of both organizations, and I wish to talk first about the domestic MI5. um, I don't know how long I've got to live. That is the main thrust of my current, shall I say, expose on domestic UK MI5. So MI5 is an organisation with an illustrious past. Uh, it's been going for many decades. It was set up by very important UK politicians and also interested, if you like, focus groups as well as stakeholders in British society. I do apologise uh, for my for the quality of my voice, but I hope that the content will make up for this gap. So, firstly, dear me, I might have to abort this and reconvene, but I'm determined to make some kind of statement. So, let's first discuss the purpose of MI5. So, broad overview. Uh, Security agencies are a common part of any state. So this is not unique to the UK. Many other, not only European countries, but also international countries have security services. You'd be well aware of World War II, and also the Cold War. Security agencies of any country often mirror the politics, domestic politics of that particular country, and also the culture. So in the UK, we have a predominantly Christian-based culture, which shows respect for other people and looks to support those who are less favourable than ourselves. So in the UK, we have an illustrious past, a slightly in these times controversial imperial past that has of late created a lot of criticism from different countries. Now, also under potential fire is our long-standing relationship with the United States of America, who we share military and domestic intelligence with and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. So the UK is at once traditional but also evolving. So it's traditional in the sense that it has very clear lines of history that have been, built up over many hundreds of years, not only through our recent imperial past, but also going back as, the Hanseatic League and also the Silk Road, um, trading routes that have been set up over many hundreds of years. If you want to, you can even take it back to the Romans and our, if you like, interest in continental trading that occurred well before the Romans. Now, so MI5, if you like, is a building on these particular uh, history and legacy, but it's also evolving. So it's evolving in the sense that modern warfare is also evolving. So we are, as a society, as a, if you like, a global society now with international travel via airplanes, which brings its new um, novel threats as well as challenges. The global society largely, and I'm talking about if you look beyond the last 5 years, has largely shunned the use of traditional military conventional weapons, and indeed has also shunned the nuclear threat. And you would be well aware of the calls for unilateral uh, denuclearization of major forces such as the USSR at the time, America, and also the UK with their uh, sort of downplaying of the Trident nuclear missile weapons defense system. So the nuclear and the conventional warfare across not only Europe but across the world over the last 50 years has tended to be reduced. And this has been a result of the growing trade and the realization that having a nuclear weapon detonated on a major European country not only has fallout in the sense of immediate loss of life, disruption to infrastructure, ongoing medical uh, conditions that need to be treated, disruption then to the trade, and therefore a knock on effect in this global society. World leaders and world military advisors, as well as top businessmen and women across Europe and the world, realize that conventional war, as well as nuclear war, is not in their interest. And I would say, especially nuclear war. What we've seen in the last 5 years is an increase in conflict across the world, largely driven by history, um, conventions like the Sykes-Picot Agreement, and its modern predecessor, the Balfour Agreement, and also lines drawn in the sand in maps many miles away in the UK regarding Africa, and also, of course, the balkanization of Serbia and the conflict between Muslims and Christians there, as well as lines drawn in the sand, essentially in Russia, former USSR. We have got breaking up of different uh, parts of their country, which is the Russian Bear. So we have all these kinds of things going on, which have increased the conventional threat of warfare, which has been going on in the last 5 years or so. So we've got a real increase in these, of course, conventional warfare, driven globally by the sort of shift in geopolitics away from the US, more to China, and more to areas such as South America, such as Russia. So a bias then that America does not control everything, which has largely driven this shift in the geopolitical order and more towards an anti, or we say an alternative bias in the system. So if you're wondering about how we can solve the Israel Iran crisis, or you might say Palestinian, you might drop that in, but of course Iran uses agents, or whether it's Hamas or other people, to drive necessary change that they want towards Israel. So I would not stress too much about these kind of things. And I know I'm supposed to be talking about MI5, but this is I wanted to just give you an overview of the political system on essentially on the planet, and why war is happening. Just a very short one, and I'm going to go into more depth on when I talk about MI6 uh, shortly. But yeah, so MI5, of course, then is primarily concerned with homeland security, so the security within our borders. Of course, the internet does blur this slightly. So we need to at once uh, be conscious of not only our past, but the trend towards more conventional war in the last 5 years, driven by historical aspect, but also the evolving threat of cyber attacks. So the UK would have been and is currently targeted for malicious threats to domestic infrastructure. So things like utilities. So things like in Warrington, for example, you have United Utilities. You have uh, all kinds of infrastructure, whether it's power, nuclear, which of course another extremely secure system that we have, all rely on information technology and therefore potentially vulnerable to attack. So of course the internet is connected, it's a global network. So this is why cybersecurity is the new battlefront. Um, you know, the if you like, the shift in the UK, a lot of you will notice is, you know, through the 1800s and previously, um, previous to the 1800s, we had a largely farming community, and then we moved in the 1800s to the industrial age, and now in the noughties, plus we have the services-led, IT-led coding sort of system where people, your average common garden pleb in the UK, if you want to put it that, might have been a farmer picking apples, and now he's coding and checking code, etc. This is just the standard, and the ruling elites in the UK will be well aware of that situation. It's not to say that our intelligentsia have changed. We still have a very strong intellectual and thriving uh, ruling elite in this country. So I suppose what I want to talk about is the activities of MI5. So MI5 would largely be based into different divisions. We've got a cyber crime section in the UK that looks at threats directly to such infrastructure as utilities, nuclear, critical services, NHS, government, administration, local authorities, down to that level, granular level of control. We look to escalate threats that have been reported to us via different channels, and we seek out, the chatter, um, and we seek out what really is potentially a genuinely malign threat. And of course, what we're doing is we're dealing initially with non-human agents, so we're dealing with programs, malware, that essentially we don't have any sort of sense of human agency behind them. But then through this, we then sift back, retrace, whether it's IPs, signals, uh, intelligence. It's all built that we can then look to see where the threats are coming from, and then potentially work out whether there's something that we need to deal with in MI5, that it's in fact a domestic threat that we can then investigate, potentially prosecute, thwart, all this kind of thing needs to be done. Of course, initially we'd look for damage limitation. We'd look to control damage to infrastructure, loss of life, which is our primary concern. And of course, the courts and the justice system come later, as well as compensation, all that kind of thing. So, when necessary, we would pass information on to MI6 when it's known that there is a definite foreign link uh, that needs to be, thought through, investigated, and then, potentially neutralized. So, in MI6, of course, in MI5, of course, domestic homeland security, we're looking at domestic threats that have been flagged up to us either by individuals, by our own intelligence officers, or in fact by our strategic management, who then look and actively seek out potential threats and um, able to gather and so able to have a built intelligence picture of the landscape of threat, and then work out where our teams need to focus and potentially gather more information on. So we'd use different systems. We'd use human and non-human agents. This is a mix of AI that sift through conversations, phone logs, internet chatter, uh, chat rooms, private messaging to a certain extent. Um, and we're looking for keywords, key phrases. With AI, there's more context links now, so it's not just trigger words, it's much more intelligent than that. This is done by AI. This is not done by humans. To use humans, you need a planet load of people on high salaries working around the clock. So costs need to be cut down with emergent threats, with cyber threats, and that's how we do it. We use AI to sift through different stages, using also a time-based as well as trigger word and context based chatter. And then eventually, after it's gone through a few processes of this, unless it's streamlined right through with particular sequences of words, then after a few days, uh, days to weeks, it is then passed on to human agents who would then look to see what exactly is going on in that department. So there's the AI, and then we get the actual human-based intelligence officers, and they're largely looking through. Um, I don't want to talk too much about them because obviously there are security concerns, and don't want to go too much into them. But I would say, as security advisor, what I can tell you is that there are, in fact, the human agents deal with a more human factor. So you can't send AI in to a, I don't know, to a Muslim cell in Manchester. You can't send AI programs in to talk face to face with a I don't know, Somali shopkeeper. You can't do that. It needs to be a human agent, needs to be a real person going in, your common or garden person, very normal, uh, getting the information, having a chat, really, really is something that is quite innocent in that sense. So you need a human to talk to a human. You need AI to sift through all this internet chatter. So MI5 is largely based, as I say, with domestic threats. Just to summarize, it's split off into uh, the cyber department, if you want to call it that, and also the human-based department. I'm talking very, very sort of like broad brush strokes here, just so that you get the general picture. Shall we move on to MI6? Let's have a poll. Is anyone Commander Fox? Good morning to you, sir. Shall I move on to MI6, or do you want me to talk more about MI5? Do we have anyone else listening? Your IPs are not being logged. Okay, no, everyone's left. Okay, fine, that's fine. So you can continue with this. This will be in the lives if you want to catch up with this. Um, Tell me if you want more. Do you want me to talk about MI6? I think I've just lost everyone because I've talked about people that. Okay, well, I'm not going to talk about MI6 since you all have left, and you got to come back with me. Uh, Sorry, I'll just go for it. I'll talk about MI6 tomorrow. This is JC Audits channel. Hope you enjoyed that. Please do not listen to this live. This live will self-destruct in 24 hours.